Hello again. These were the images where I left off last week. Martin, two of your suggestions stood out and directed where I put my effort this week. The first was the mention of Alice in Wonderland. You suggested the letter might be walking through the mirror into the other land. This comment reminded me of the scene in Wizard of Oz when Dorothy first walks through her front door and into the Land of Oz. Specifically, I was interested in how color could be used as a metaphor between reality and fantasy. The second suggestion was to write a backstory for my character. The transitions between black and white and color and between digital and physical worlds were both ideas I wanted to highlight in the story. Once I had written my dialogue, I broke it down into scenes of how I might begin to stage my images. I started this week by photographing a single letter form as opposed to beginning with a digital one. In trying to think about how the transition from black and white to color might occur, I thought of pixels. So first I tried to weave strips of color gels, experimenting with different color strips in other places, directly on the screen, and woven onto a separate layer. As I worked, the strips of color on the screen reminded me of glitches, so I leaned into the concept, shortening some strips, adding black and white strips, and trying to make the weave tighter and less random. I continued to build on the z-axis, trying to get the character to walk from one scene into the next scene, adding in strips of color to act as glitches in each image. I chose 3 images from the series I'd created to review. Though I liked my original concept, a character existing on a screen accidentally split into and half propelled into a physical reality, the visuals I was working on didn't feel like they matched the story. These images felt random and messy. There was no reason or relationship between the strips of color and their placement. I decided to try a different approach and add the glitch effect in a digital medium, while still constructing the letter form across separate planes of the iPad screen. I began with the 2 images you see here, a complete letter and a half of a letter. These images are from the complete letter form. I tried to work slower this time, using only half the letter form. I tried a few different placements, but found it mostly just blocked the graphics that I had created digitally. I decided to position it opposite the digital graphic, but also try and bring back some of the physical elements of the glitch by reintroducing the color gels. Then I tried the same approach on the half character. This is where I began to see moments of interest and possibility. In much the same way I approached the work last week, it seemed that I was trying too much all at once. These 2 horizontal glitch strips stood out to me. Their placement behind the physical letter seemed to be a natural transition point for a physical component to appear. I returned to the camera again and carefully set up my scene. I took a few images, slowly adding in strips. They were getting closer to what I wanted, but still felt flat. I was moving around my camera setup and momentarily found myself looking at it from a different angle. My shift in position introduced a new perspective. It also made me realize I'd been working from the same perspective this entire time, but nonetheless, I decided to lean into this idea and shift the position of the iPad. It may be because I was staring at an object straight on for so long, but this image suggests movement more to me than the others did. Using only 2 strips of color also allowed them to link to the primary image and stand out in this secondary image. I'll call these my final 2 for the week. There are problems. In my story, I wanted the letter A to transition from the digital world of black and white into the magical reality of color. However, looking at these images doesn't present a black and white beginning. I can go back and address that issue though, possibly using techniques from last week's images. I also don't feel the glitch component is fully resolved, but positioning the iPad at an angle does offer a sense of tension between the physical and digital that working straight on missed. So for next week, I'm going to try and focus more on creating a series of moments that I outlined earlier, ideally to show the narrative arc of this letterform's journey between two spaces. Thank you, as always, for watching.